Sean Manning is here with us from Payroll Vault, and we're going to talk a little bit about the brand as well as your time with us as an FBR client. So I know that you've been franchising since 2012, and you guys started working with us in 2014, and we've been working consistently together over the last few years. What does it mean to you to be an FBR award winner?
I really, when we got into franchising, I didn't know there was a lot of awards. And one of the first things we did is try to validate kind of our own vision, our own goals, what the perception is of the franchisees, even talking with fellow franchise industry leaders, whether it's suppliers or other franchisors. I needed some sort of kind of validation into what we were doing, how we're doing. So initially, when we started to engage with FBR, it was mostly to verify that what we're doing is right. We didn't necessarily think that there was going to be awards around it, although it was exciting to see. And now looking back, when we invite people into the office and they see the recognition when we're out at conferences and we bring the information and even the plaques and everything, it's a good validator. It lets people know that, number one, we're serious about what we're doing and helping our franchisees be successful, but it also gives us good validation that we're communicating well with the franchisees and on track for what we're trying to do to be successful that particular year.
Yeah, and I mean, I was looking back and it's been 7 years of being a top franchise, so part of our top 200 list, which we release each year, and then obviously featured on additional special lists that we do throughout the year, like top franchises for women and low cost franchises, and even our newest one for brand culture. So that was pretty exciting to see you guys a part of that as well, especially during 2020, which was certainly an interesting year, and we'll get to that a little later.
Sure.
But through your experience with our different services and products that we offer, like our validation program, our lead generation, tell me about how that is for you guys to kind of expand past the data part of the survey.
Yeah, well, it's always good to have resources behind that, right? How do you get the message out about our brand? How do people engage once they become interested in who we are and what we do? So having those additional resources kind of blended right in, lead generation, validation, videos like this where they can see us talk about our brand and learn more, I think are really important. So it's just not the one piece. There's a cohesive piece to FBR that really brings it all together for us and allows us to focus on our business model and everything we're trying to accomplish, knowing those other things are kind of being taken care of already automatically. We don't have to really think too hard about all the resources we use with FBR.
Kind of head back to the data side of it. How do you and your team use the survey data, so the feedback from your franchisees, to drive your strategic plans? How do you share it internally?
Yeah, one of the most difficult time, I've been a business owner now for about 25 years, and one of the most difficult things for me is getting validation into how my effort is helping the organization. So initially, FBR is a really good motivator for me to stay on track personally and be accountable to what we're trying to do on a day-to-day basis. But alongside of that, we run a program called Framework for Success, and our framework is basically our goals for the year. They stretch out a little bit, the 3 years and 5 years, but we focus primarily on the 1 year goal. And we put those together internally, and then we compare it to the FBR results. And we try to almost guess as to what the franchisees are needing from us, if there's anything that we need to work on. And the good thing for us is those have been pretty consistent. So when we identify an area that we think we need to work on, we do compare it to the FBR results. And then we kind of hone in on, is there any new information there? Do we need to tweak our goals? Do we need to communicate out to the franchisees and ask for more explanation? And so we do what's called an owner's exchange. And at owner's exchange, we kind of roll out, that's usually early in the year in March or April, May. It kind of depends on kind of what's going on. But we kind of roll out all of our goals and ask them to kind of critique what we're trying to do. And then at the end of the year, we use that same information from FBR and our framework to measure how successful we are. So our annual conference is at the end of the year. And we meet again with all of our franchisees in attendance and kind of critique how we perform. So I like to say we're in partnership with our franchisees. Our goal is to make them happier and more successful. And I think that survey is critical to us. I'll spend at least 8 to 16 hours reviewing that and kind of measuring it up against our goals for the year and putting our projects in place that need to coincide with that.
Nice. Now, talking about the franchisees, what opportunities do you offer to kind of help, obviously with the annual meetings or times that you guys can talk to each other through the owners exchange? What other opportunities do you give them to connect with each other so that they can share best practices, see what everybody's doing to be successful? Do you help assist in that way?
Yeah, it's part of the ongoing process for sure. So not only at our annual conferences, the FBR review is really almost foundational, but that leads us into our monthly owner calls, where we're communicating every single month with our owners. The one thing we did last year, and we kicked it off in March, I think both Trisha, my partner, and our COO were almost ready to go on vacation in March when things got really, really crazy fast. And we immediately went to a weekly meeting. So almost for 2 months, we were communicating weekly with our franchisees on here's what you need to know, here's how to manage your business, here's what you need to be thinking about with your team. Here's where our industry is in payroll. So obviously we were here to help business owners. How can we do that to help them get through this? So we work really, really hard in communication on a regular basis with our franchisees. And the other thing is we have our Friend Connect system is a way for them to communicate together. So this last year is really when you get to the level we're at with about 50, 60 units, that employee collaboration is really important, where they start to teach and support each other, and making sure the right resources are available for them to do that, I think is really important. And we've seen a dramatic increase, but I think they kind of, it's fostered and learned through our communication with the franchisees that now they can communicate together, and it just makes it all that more cohesive and for everybody to kind of stay in one direction on what we need to do together. So we continue that conversation far beyond what the information we get with the review and our internal planning. We actually teach our franchisees how to do their own planning. And we ask them for what those goals might be, so we know how to help them during the year be successful.
Awesome. And it does lead into the next kind of question that I want to ask, because of last year, because of 2020 and the changes you had to make, not only to how you communicate and stay in touch with your franchisees, just in general, how did the whole pandemic kind of impact your business? And did you make additional changes to the marketing and recruitment strategies that you had in place because of it as well?
We did. Well, so first of all, being so organized with obviously the information we're getting from FBR, working that into our framework, we knew specifically what our goals were going to be last year. And we didn't hesitate by continuing that process, even though we had what I call hyper transformation, right? In business completely changed. And even though we were doing many of the things that we're doing now previously, I mean, 99% of all of our training is done through virtual meetings. It's been that way for 5 years. So we didn't have to shift much. But what we had to do is open communication and really bring in kind of that higher level leadership that we can get through this together. We were supposed to have our owners exchange in May, and that immediately got canceled. So what we did is we took speakers, and we had speakers in April and May. Our conference was going to be in August. So we couldn't do our conference. So we shortened it and had speakers in June, July, and August to really bring that kind of motivational impact throughout the year to help everybody along. So last year was obviously a challenging year because of the transformation component, but for us, it was very manageable because we were already using many of the resources that we're using today, or businesses are using more effectively today, essentially. And then it was just about kind of managing through the year. It seemed like every week we were throwing another curveball. It was managing those curveballs and then kind of being prepared for the next week to see what's happened. And then over time, it worked out. It's probably the best way to describe it. It wasn't a super year. It wasn't a really difficult year. I think it worked out, which is kind of how this year is shaping up to be a little bit. But hopefully the latter half of the year will be a lot more easier to manage from a business and personal standpoint.
Yeah, hopefully we all have fingers
Yeah.
crossed for that. A quarter at a time, or maybe right now a month at a time is how we can we can look at it.
Yeah.
Any specific success story that kind of came out of last year?
Yeah, you know what? We had our owners meeting earlier this month. It's the first week of the month every year. And the one thing that I did is we had about 10 new franchisees in 2019, and we had about 8 or 9 at the end of 2020. And what I thought was extremely motivating for me and just really almost inspirational was their dedication. The 2019, you just start a business and you have no idea this is going to happen, and they managed very well. They worked harder than you would normally do the first year owning a franchise. So I let them know thank you, and how really inspirational they were. But then we got to our 2020 franchisees that came on late in the year, and they came at a time that there's not only uncertainty, but obviously opportunity with business far into the future. So I let them know that they were pretty inspirational also, and my response to them is because of that inspiration and their dedication, I'm gonna be right there with them. So as hard as they're gonna work, our team's gonna be working right beside them just as hard until we can kind of get to a place where we can be more relaxed. I mean, you never want to slow down with business when things are going well, but just be a little bit more relaxed and focus on the day to day and the long term. So it was an interesting year, but I also think there's some good, it really kind of a feel good effect coming out of the year with the inspiration of our franchisees.
You talked about some of the new owners that came on board in 2020 and 2019. What do you think the biggest reason is that candidates come to you?
Yeah, I think number one is there is some great recognition out there from a lot of different places. So it's easy to find us. It's easy to validate us. If you want to kind of research before you have a conversation with us, you can pretty much get a good feel of who we are as an organization. And I think then behind that, you really have to perform. So when you talk to Marilyn in our development side, and when we schedule a CEO call with me, when you meet the team at your discovery day, there has to be a consistent, pattern there to this is fun. This is going to be exciting, and I want to be with these people. I mean, I wish we could have them all back in Denver for our conferences. It's like we tell them you're coming home to be with us, and we love that seeing them. And we'll be again soon. But we try and treat everybody like a family and support them. And I think just being really upfront and supportive and kind of living behind your core values. We have a document called our brand identity. It's about 6 pages long, and we don't reference it on a daily basis, but it's there to remind us all that we're here to work together and collaborate and be successful under some core values, kind of that culture component that everybody talks about.
Yeah, which might be one of the reasons why we saw you on our culture list last year, and
Oh
hopefully we'll
yeah,
see you again later this year too. We're gonna focus on it again later this year. So
great.
to kind of wrap things up, I just wanted to know, from your years of working with us and being a part of everything that we try to offer to franchise brands, from their data to bringing the right candidates to you,
Mhm.
how have we changed kind of the way that you do business, and if at all?
Yeah, I had a friend tell me once in business, You have your business, right? And your employees and your team. You have your vendor partners, and you have your customers and clients. Those are all kind of unique components of every business. And it was interesting. It was about 15 years ago when I was sitting at the table with him. And he goes, you know what? I could manage my business and my team. I can go get clients. And I always just trust my vendor partners are here to support me. And he brought it up because he had a couple vendor partners that kind of really were difficult to work with, right? And it's a little bit shocking that you want to pay people money and work with somebody and it becomes difficult. I will have to say, working with FBR, it's the complete opposite. You almost feel like you surprise us, right? You bring the right resources. We have an opportunity to have great conversations like this, so that we can work together at a higher level that maybe goes over our expectations. We talked a little bit about that in our business, that company essence, the voluntary things that you do to help others be successful. Or just please, thank you, you're welcome, the little things that you do to appreciate others. So I'll have to say thank you to Colton and everybody at the FBR team. I love working with you because I feel like you surprise me quite often, and that's good to have.
Well, good. I'll try to remember that and keep that going for
Yeah.
this year too. Well, thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. And yeah, have a great rest of the beginning of this year. And February is coming up quicker than we
Yeah,
think, but we'll be in touch. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
you bet. Thanks a lot, Nicole.